I'm so glad you're sitting like this, Bum Sun, because I see you sitting like this all the time, and you're doing something called Yoksa therapy.
Yes.
And that's kind of like where I've got to know you from a little bit. This is one of the first times we're meeting, but I've seen and heard you a lot on SPNS TV, on YouTube. I really enjoy your stuff. Can you tell us a little bit about that, what you're doing? Maybe that'd be a way in for us.
I was on the SPNS channel because it's my friends hosting it, and then it was fun. So we decided to make a separate channel, or not like within the same channel, separate program called Yoksa Therapy. And the idea is to basically talk about history, but without being divisive, because the way we remember and discuss history in Korea, but also in the modern world as a whole, is very divisive, political, and political by definition is divisive. So rather than talking about a story, which is what history is, I mean, it's a narrative that brings people into conflicts or into hatred or into fear. I wanted to sort of come up with an alternative narrative, which could be more healing and therapeutic and inclusive. And we did our first season, which was, I think, 13 episodes.
Yeah.
Mainly on modern Korean history from the late 19th century to mid 20th century. So basically the beginning of the colonial period to the Korean War, and how Korea got divided into two and multiple pieces more, but mainly until the Korean War. But in a way that kind of brings light to people that are traditionally or usually considered to be the villains or the far left or the far right, but also talking about people in between that are forgotten for political reasons. And I think a lot of people loved it. A lot of people did say it was healing, which was very rewarding to hear.
It's fun to get something that is so divisive in Korea, and the left and the right, not only North Korea and South Korea, but inside South Korea itself. Political allegiances and sides and battle lines are drawn. But what I saw you were doing is you were talking about figures from the right and the left in the same breath. And you were talking about the good things and the bad things. Was that easy to do? Was it a conscious effort? Did you have to find your way through that? Was it difficult or?
I have to give credit to Juno, the producer, and Matt, the producer, for being my guide. I mean, they named the show Yoksa Therapy.
It's a good name.
It's a good name. So and it kind of created that spirit. And so the questions were, I think, sometimes more important than the answer. So they always posed the right questions. But I did try to sort of, because there's no way I can be completely unbiased. Nobody is completely unbiased.
Right.
And just by omission, you can be biased. And so I did consciously try to, not be considered biased. At the same time, I studied history in college and post-grad, and it has been my passion to just explore the varieties of the ideas of men and women that created history that we know. So more than just like judging a human being, I just wanted to tell their stories, which kind of speaks for itself. So yeah, it was a little bit of a mental gymnastics for me, but it was fun.
I love cosplaying with ideas sometimes. If there's these different ideas, I want to investigate Hinduism. I want to look at sort of Marxism. I want to go and play with them and throw around them in my head, and then look at the people and why they thought these things. I think what you do that is really interesting, because you tell stories about people that live these lives. And I sometimes tell my students, imagine how hard it is to describe or define communism today or neoliberalism today.
Right, yeah.
And these young adults have got the internet and ChatGPT and all these things. Imagine you were just on a farm or in India, 100. How do you do that? I mean, putting myself in that mindset of these people 100 odd years ago, did they think differently from us?
Oh, definitely. I mean, we always have the benefit of the hindsight. So I think it's really unfair to be, I mean, that's what history is, to be judging with hindsight, and hindsight is always 2020. But so it's, if we can kind of put ourselves into the shoes, I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, if you are actually thinking from that person's perspective, whether even the most biggest arch villains of history, it made sense for them to do so. You know what I mean? So that's the basics of sort of empathy, or just thinking.
Thanos logic or something.
Yeah. So it's not like I'm trying to give them an excuse or anything, but if we understand better, I mean, that's what healing is, or therapy is to try to make sense of our trauma. And I see Korean modern history as a collective trauma, and which is very symptomatic of the modern world. But just the Korean experience was the most extreme because of the geopolitical reasons. So if you consider our condition as a collective psychosis right now, and our memory, which is our historical narrative, to be a result of that, then therapy starts by just shedding light on our deepest shadows and trauma. And if we put ourselves into the shoes of these people, that's what it is.
Are you healing the nation? It feels like, I know it's a ridiculous thing to say, but it's, I just watch with my students, like 국제시장, like this afternoon, and I've got international students in there, Korean students, and they're realizing this kind of collective, as you say, trauma and psychosis, how these people have been divided. And it doesn't talk about ideology in that movie. I know it's kind of a political movie, but it's all about family and division and separation and people being torn apart from each other, actually.
Right.
And how that might have laid unresolved for so long.
Right. And I don't think it's just the experience of the Korean people. I think it's a modern experience of humanity, and because modernity as a product of sort of the Western industrial civilization is by definition very divisive. It's binary to begin with. It divides between leftists and rightists, and man versus woman, West versus East, communism versus capitalism,
Heaven and hell,
heaven and earth, all these things. It's a very binary system, and then the logical extension of that is the zeros and ones of the digital world. And so it's very, and we're born into that paradigm, whether we're Koreans or Brits or Americans. Like, we're all part of it now, whether we like it or not. I mean, and sometimes we take that for granted, so that we always sort of put in a position to be picking sides, And I think it's about time we stop doing that.
It's not cool to be a centrist, though. It's bad to be a, do you know what I mean? It's like, which side are you on? Like, if you're a centrist, who are you? You're like an NPC or something.
Right.
And that's not cool.
You're being in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's what that was my struggle in the academia, or when I was a student in college, because I was a student of history of ideas, especially history of Western philosophy. And the more I explored it, I mean, I see the limitations of Western modern philosophy, but fundamentally it's about that binary worldview. But it was impossible. Like, either I'm like, are you a social democrat, or like the third way, or centrist, and so on and so forth, and never really satisfied me until I started to explore Korean or East Asian, but more specifically Korean spiritual traditions. And it's all in the Korean flag, as I've already mentioned at the SPNS. And it's the principle of Taeguk, or Tai Chi, is, I think, a way to sort of think beyond this binary worldview of left versus right, or good versus evil. And but Koreans, we don't think about it. I didn't think about it when I was growing up here, and I didn't learn about this much in school because we want to learn the Western ideas, not the Eastern. And so that was really my goal for SPNS, to, basically bring people's interest and get us to talk about these modern historical memories of trauma but eventually to heal that with our own sort of worldview, which I call Taeguk or Pungryu, wind and flow. As I hope we can discuss later. But it's in the history of this people and the symbolism of the nation, which I find to be beautiful.
The Taeguk looks binary. This is a really difficult question, but
Yes.
you've spoken about the Western paradigm being binary of
Yes.
left versus right, the heaven and hell, good and evil. But if you look at the Taeguk, which is the yin and yang is black and white and vertical,
Right.
and the Taeguk in the middle of the Korean flag
Yes.
is blue and red and horizontal.
Right.
It looks binary.
It looks very much binary.
Yeah.
And the idea is that the yin and the yang are the two binary principles. But what's different than, for example, the sort of dialectical methods or dialectical perspective is that the opposites are not the thesis and antithesis. They're creating a synthesis through some kind of a conflict or through some kind of a movement that ousts the other or conquers the other. It's not light versus the darkness, that light conquers darkness. It's the idea that when light is, if there's too much darkness, it leads to light.
Yeah.
If there's too much light, it leads to darkness. And when the night is deep, there's a day. The day is deep, there's a night. And Korean flag, because it's the country, the land of the morning calm. I think it symbolizes the image of, if you go to the East Sea, the sunrise, the red sun half above the blue sea, is basically when the night is the deepest. It's the end of the night, which is the beginning of the day.
It's the witching hour almost.
It is neither the day nor the night, but it's both night and day. And you realize the idea of night and day is also human invention. And so that's really the principle of Taeguk, that it's all complementary. And the idea of, for example, division of man and woman, the binary gender division, is also human invention, and in the West and East, all the rest of it. But I do remember you leaving a comment, and also you asked me a question about Samtaeguk. That's something I wanted to bring about.
I love the Samtaeguk.
Yeah, because it's something that's very unique to the Korean tradition.
It's very different from the yin and yang, and I'm curious, like the difference between the yin and yang and the Taeguk. But tell me about the Samtaeguk.
I mean, it's people have theories, and the basic understanding of what makes Korean Taeguk, Samtaeguk, basically not a binary Taeguk, but a triangular or
tripartite.
Tripartite Taeguk is the idea that, the Chinese Taeguk is supposed to symbolize yin and yang, also the heaven and earth. And the Korean worldview, they always put the human in between. But I tend to, that's true, but I find that to be more about the dimensional aspects of Taeguk, because this is my personal sort of interpretation, because what Taeguk is supposed to represent is the ancient Chinese worldview, right? Where you kind of find yourself on a flat earth, and you just look around, and there's the earth in the bottom, and heaven on the top.
Heaven doesn't mean like Western heaven. There might be some people. Do you understand like
Tian? Yeah.
Tian.
Yes.
Yeah. Tiananmen Square. Tian.
Yes.
It's not heaven though, is it?
The sky.
Yeah.
And in East Asian worldview, we use the word heaven or Chan or Tian to basically refer to the sky. And we do talk about the heavenly emperor or heavenly god, but it's not like some kind of a afterlife space you go above the clouds with a white-bearded old man. So it's literally scientifically, if you just think of yourself as an ancient Asian in the time of I Ching, when you first drew one line and another line to refer to the earth, and 3 lines to refer to the human, we're talking about the ceiling and the bottom, the floor. And humans as Ingan, we find ourselves in between. That's why it's Ingan. It's we're the in-between figures. And the Korean Samtaeguk is, I think, a emphasis of that. But more than that, I find that to be what the meaning of Samguk to be as a 3D representation of heaven and earth. Because as a 2D representation, it makes sense that the heaven is the yang principle and earth is the yin principle. But we now know scientifically since Galileo that the earth is, not 2D. Heaven is not necessarily above earth. It's merely a little shell around earth. And in fact, it's heaven and earth together consist a single spherical being, and humans are in it, right? And so what Samguk represents for me is that when we think about Taeguk or Tai Chi, there was obviously that limitations in the old days to represent it on a paper and write it down and make it 2D. But our real life experience of heaven and earth and the humans in between is not 2D. It's 3D at least, and if not 4D, 5D, and more so. So I think what the Samguk sort of tradition emphasizes is to remind ourselves of our own position in this universe, in this sort of a 3D system where our own existence as humanity or living being is sort of reminded. And I think that's a very important element because it talks about our newfound position in this modern universe. We can...
It's quite androcentric, isn't it? It puts humans in there, not as part of nature. I remember hearing that the idea that when the ancient Greeks, they invented nature, it was everything but us. It includes the mountains, the wind, the sea, but not humans. And with the Samguk, it's like you have the Li and the Gi, you have the force and the principle, and who understands them? It's us as humans. When you think about all of this, do you have any idea of where we come from? Because you said as humans, we think in 3D, and my mind started racing to animals, and I'm not sure all animals think in 3D. I'm probably completely wrong about this, but I'm thinking about Hwarang walking around the dog, and did you ever get down to, did we come out of the sea? Are we aliens? Do you know what I mean by this? Did we come down from heaven? Where are you from, Hwarang?
Oh, wow.
Is there a historical answer? Tangun Halaboji, it's Kechonjo next week, Foundation Day.
Yes. The Genesis story of the Korean people, it has been my sort of, it's been an area that fascinated me for a while, to compare the Genesis story of the West, especially the Bible, and the sort of Kaebyuk story of the Korean people. And yes, there's this whole Tangun myth, but before all of that was Kaebyuk. And
I don't know. One more time. What's this word?
Kaebyuk.
Okay.
Kaebyuk is the word we used to refer to Genesis. But the Korean translation of the biblical Genesis is 천지 창조. So it's the creation of heaven and earth. It's the Korean literal translation of the biblical episodes of Genesis. But if you look at 도덕경, Tao Te Ching, and also Korean folk traditions, we use the word Kaebyuk to refer to the beginning of the universe. And there are interesting differences and similarities. But what I find to be a similarity is that in the Bible, they use the word logos to refer to God. And the beginning there was logos, and logos was God. And but logos is word, it's language. And but in Lao Tzu, in Noza, it begins with the line that says, the Tao you can call a Tao is not a Tao. A name you can name a name is not a name. And it kind of starts with the futility of words when it comes to explaining God. But what I find but it's just an attitude in terms of whether to worship word or reason or not. But both kind of assumes that in the beginning there was word. And it's a matter of like, how we make sense of it. And in the Korean tradition of Pungryu, wind and flow, or Donghak, there's always this constant reference to 50,000 years ago. When Donghak founder Choe Je-u wrote his poems and started to preach, he talked about the first Haebangchon 50,000 years ago.
Wow.
And this is before the Koreans had an understanding of Darwinism or anything, or the cognitive revolution. Because right now scientists estimate that our sort of cognitive revolution, sort of explosive evolution in human capacity for language happened around 50,000 years ago.
Yeah.
But there's this mythical, 19th century, before 19th century, they talk about the Haebangchon that happened 50,000 years ago. And which is strange for me.
Yeah.
And so I've been trying to figure out what that would mean. What was Haebangchon? And my sort of interpretation, understanding is that, well, when language began, when humans started to develop the capacity to speak in words and call heaven apart from earth, one from two, yin from yang, na, no, and to be able to verbalize that. In other words, when logos happened, and we now scientifically know that 50,000 years ago, approximately, is when logos happened. But in our tradition, we say Haebangchon. And what's interesting is that there's not only one Haebangchon.
There's more?
There's more.
Yeah.
There's,
how many?
Because in East Asia, it's a cyclical thing.
Yeah, right.
Haebangchons happen in cycles. So the idea is that 50,000 years ago was the Suncheon Haebangchon, which is my best attempt at translation is a priori Haebangchon. Suncheon means innate.
Okay.
So sun as in like first,
Yeah.
like
Something
early
in sun.
something in sun. Cheon is tian. Suncheon Haebangchon. 선천적으로, right?
Yeah.
So a priori. And then there's the a posteriori, 후천 Haebangchon. And what's fascinating is that the 18th century prophets of the Korean people were talking about 후천 Haebangchon that's coming. And they sort of, that's the whole premise of Donghak.
The Buddhists do that as well, don't they? They talk about the future Buddha we're waiting to wake up, and because we still have suffering and pain and things like this. There'll be one more that will, one of us somewhere, not one of us, but or maybe
Right,
you,
right. No,
but
no.
somebody here will open their eyes and wake up.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that's
Unfinished.
But there's no such thing as, I guess there is the messianic tradition in the West too. But I don't, as far as I'm aware, I don't think it mentions another Genesis. It's basically the second coming of Jesus and the kingdom of heaven on earth. But it's not necessarily the same thing as the Genesis per se. But in the tradition of Haebangchon, because Haebangchon is connected. I mean, my understanding is that it's connected with the beginning of language. So this is where I find the digital revolution, or because like the Hucheon Haebangchon, the second Haebangchon they've been predicting, must be something that kind of overturns or overrides the importance of language. Because if language is what enabled us to basically, I mean, universe was here. It's not like we created universe. It's not like the Bible. When the Bible says, with words, God created this and that, it's not like, oh, heaven, earth, and then heaven and earth popped up. It's more like we began to see the world as such.
Yeah.
What used to be just one single wholeness, oneness, was now with thanks to language, we could tell apart.
We named and divided.
And named and divided.
Yeah.
And what I think the Korean sort of tradition has been predicting or sensing is that there will be a moment when all that will be futile. And I think what we see with like brain-computer interface and I mean even TikTok or Instagram, there's not much words going on.
No.
the mode of communication, the main mode of communication for the first time in history, since maybe the first Kaebyuk, since the invention of language, is no longer verbal. It's no longer logos. It's aura or charisma or it's image or it's vibes. Yeah, exactly. Vibes. And I think that's what the Korean sort of tradition of Kaebyuk has been referring to and mentioning. And I think throughout the history of the universe, there has been cycles like that, where, you know, different mode of, basically different operating systems came about and kind of changed. And so that's why, I mean, I'm not sure if that answers your question of where do we come from, but I think this is, you know, the paradigm of the language.
Where identity comes from.
Yeah, that's where we are
That's
from.
where we come from and start naming and calling ourselves.
Right.
I wonder then if there's a new paradigm or we return back to the old paradigm, like day into night and spring, summer, autumn, winter, when we go round and round, that the Buddhists have it right with hwadus and contemplation and silence and this kind of thing, that there might lie in the answer, that maybe we're talking too much.
Yeah.
I say on a podcast, this is like Lao Tzu when he says the Tao that can be Taoed is not the true Tao.
Yeah.
And maybe, I don't know,
That's why I'm a musician. And although I do play the role of uttering the words in the band, but I think, like, as you said, vibrations is what music is. And that's what shamanism is all about. It's something that transcends human language. And when Korean shamans or Korean, even Buddhists or Confucians even, when they were trying to communicate with the spirits and the dead and the non-human entities, they would use music, singing and dancing to do so. And I guess that's why I chose the profession. It's a new mode of, it's an archaic revival in a way. It's going back, but in a different cycle.
Will I get in trouble if I say your music sounds to me quite androgynous? But some music sounds very masculine, and some music. And I remember when I started watching Sing Sing, the band, but they would sort of have this non-binary performance because the shamans, when they would communicate, they had to communicate with male spirits and female spirits, and so they couldn't be tied down to one thing. And listening to the Yang bands, I haven't listened to the whole discography, but I get an androgynous vibe from it.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, the attitude is that we're trying to just channel the energy, and we're the medium, and that's what shamans are. And we get very much inspired by our surroundings, the locations of where we compose the music, because we mostly jam out in nature to write these songs. And so, yes, I am performing, and Yang bands are performing, but it's not really us. You know, it's just we're just, you know,
channel something like the muses or something.
That's the intention. Obviously, it's not always the case, but. I mean, a lot of what we feel in nature is not necessarily male or masculine or feminine. So yeah, I mean, that's very interesting observation.
I had this revelation. I want to come back a little bit towards the Taeguk and particularly the I Ching and the dots and the dashes. But there was this moment, I think it was David Mason that told me this, that East Asia has no concept of the devil. Of Satan, of Mephistopheles, of Beelzebub. And, you know, I'd grown up and you see it just in literature, in cartoons, the angel pops out one side, you should do this. And the devil says, no, you shouldn't. And somebody once told me, like, for thousands of years, East Asia just didn't have this persona. They had dokgebis and goblins and Hwarangi and, you know, Shiomoni or whatever it might be, right? But they didn't have this one thing that represented evil. And I'm not sure you'll take, but when I heard that, I was like, oh my God, I've been living inside a specific cultural paradigm that is very different from what was happening here in East Asia.
Yeah, it's completely true. And I mean, anything evil could be good. Anything good can be evil. And it's not like we're trying to live in a relativist mindset where
that feels weird to say in 2025. Sorry to interrupt you, but do you know what I mean by that? We live in such a different world from
live in a post-truth world. And but I think that is precisely because of the digital transformation we're going through. I mean, the global political phenomenon we see is a byproduct of the digital revolution, and we're just getting used to this. Because the essence of digital revolution is it brings us back to our tribal times. That's what I mean by the archaic revival. Words don't matter as much. Reason is not as useful because it's all about the charisma and the aura. And, it's not about arguing.
Like and the retweet and the share, there's no words going on. It's just
exactly.
Dun, dun.
And it creates your emotion and connection. And it could be extremely dangerous because we don't have a framework that sort of a governance that sort of guarantees the safety of the society, given this new, basically, tool. And I think that's our biggest task as our first sort of our generation's mission as the first digital natives to create those codes, new constitutions in this wild west of the metaverse.
I love that you're inclusive of it. I've heard you speak about this before, I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but in my prejudice, I would have assumed this history therapy, hippie-looking, this is like this, would be very anti-AI and transformation. And I think when I heard you speak about it, you were like, no, we incorporate it.
That's one other thing, that's something, my most recent book was a sort of attempt to critique the eco movement in Korea to be more inclusive of machines and AIs and technology, because the fundamental premise of, as you say, the East Asian worldview, whether that's shamanism or animism, is to go beyond this human versus natural binary perspectives. Because my understanding is humans are part of nature. So everything we do is natural. That includes all the AIs and everything. So from the planetary perspective, nothing is artificial. Everything's natural. Everything is basically, machines and AIs are as much of a descendants of Mother Earth as humans are.
Because it's in here. It's here with us. It's not out there, right?
Yeah. So if we kind of leave the human-centric perspective of the modern paradigm, then and that's what Korean shamanism was all about. And we believe in their spirit and everything. And so I think East Asian culture, especially Korean and Japanese culture, are more open towards the idea of a symbiosis with AI and machines as another, potentially even a sentient being. And as someone who's been involved with the animal rights movement, it's a critical point because the argument that we were facing the whole time is that non-human animals don't have rights because they don't have reason.
Yeah.
We all know they're sentient beings. We all know scientifically they feel pain. But the argument is that, humans are the only ones with rights because non-humans don't have reason. But now that we have artificial beings that are more rational than we are, the logic is
we're not very rational either, like a lot of the time. We say we're based on reason, but why is it this thing that defines us? It's like if you ask people to point to their maum, their mind, where is your mind? Like a lot of my young Korean students at university, they'll still go here.
Right, maum.
And then they'll look at people next to them and go, sorry. And they'll go here. That's cogito ergo sum, like this is me, rather than something else that defines us.
Yeah, that's another thing, because in the West, there's a separation between mind and heart. Yeah. In Korean, it's maum.
Heart, mind.
Yeah, it's the same thing. And usually it's here. And so that's something I'm intentionally trying to bring about as a sort of continuation of my arguments on animal ethics, because I think AI ethics, or whether you call it post-humanism or transhumanism, our sort of perspectives on non-human entities should be consistent. Of course, animals are not AIs and vice versa. But again, from the grand scheme of things, we're all part of the planet.
Yes.
And I think it's difficult to fathom that, difficult to accept that with a sort of modern Western frameworks, which is fundamentally anthropocentric and fundamentally binary. And yeah.
There was one idea that got me to understand that a little bit better, which was that I previously thought that the West was very rational, logical, empirical, and that the East was, in this kind of Orientalist view, spiritual and exotic and Princess Jasmine and flying carpets and things like this. But then you kind of think about it, and Judeo-Christian and heavens and hells and other realms and things like this. And when I looked at Buddhism and Confucianism and Taoism, it was like, no, it's all here. There is no kind of other place. It's all here. It's all contained. And once you can see everything as one, once you realize the unity of all things, and you can't do it with language, that's impossible. And then I heard this line, which was, how do we know that we're not already in heaven and making a mess of it? And I was like, that got it for me, that we are here and everything is part of us. And you talking about including AI, to me, is fascinating. With transhumanism, it's like, if you believe in evolution, why is this our final form? Like, are we complete? We've got flaws, we've got faults, we keep going.
That's, I talked about 선천개벽 and 후천개벽, right?
Yes.
The 선천개벽 is the idea that when they first started to talk and they started to tell heaven from earth, they found themselves stuck in between heaven and earth. Literally, heaven is above us, earth is below us, and humans are in between. And that kind of then leads to the question of, okay, what happens after we die? And the Confucian answer, or the usually stated answer, is that our body goes down into hell, which is Je-u, which is like earth prison.
Yeah.
And then our spirit goes to Samguk, which is heavenly kingdom. So it's like it gets divided, and the body gets recycled down in earth, and our spirit travels up, and its recycles get
I've not heard that
there.
before. So we go to both.
Yeah, that's the Confucian perspective. Hun and Baek get separated. Hun Baek get separated once we die, and our sort of spirit, gets recycled. They have another life, and our body also decomposes and comes back.
Yeah.
But now we know that that 2D representation of heaven and earth and in between is wrong. And it has to go into a 3D representation of, as I said, where everything on earth is heaven. As we know, heaven, when I say heaven is sky, is a little capsule, basically, that surrounds and protects the earth. And humans are living on earth. So then we realize everything on earth is heaven.
Yeah.
The air we breathe is heaven. And that's what the Quakers realized. That's what the Donghak folks realized. That's why they say, 인내천, human equals heaven. So we now realize that our life here is the heavenly existence, not the thereafter. And I think that's where the fundamental ideas of human rights and all the rest of it come from. If I study the history of human rights and the English Revolution, the French Revolution, the American Revolution, the fundamental realization that, actually, this is heaven. That's what Tolstoy was talking about. And everything else stems from them. And we're just still shifting gears in terms of what does that mean?
And if this is heaven, who are we?
Yeah.
Who are you and who am I? We're on the same team then, actually.
Exactly. And that makes everything holy and divine, for lack of a better word. Everything is God. And in Korean word, it's very, it's an everyday expression we use. 신난다.
Oh.
신나.
Is that same shin?
It's the same shin. Yeah.
I never knew that.
It's but then it's not many Koreans think about it too. But 신난다.
Shinsegae shin is different, is it?
신세계 is new.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
but when we say 신나, it's 신명. 신명 is when a shaman performs, it's 신명 살리는.
Okay.
Right? And but everyday expression is that whenever we're having so much fun, we say 신난다. It means God's coming out of us. And because it comes from that shamanic tradition, our ways of reaching ecstasy was to basically drink, sing and dance, come together and sing and dance. And once we reach ecstasy, then we say, 신나, which means God's coming out.
We found God.
We found God.
Yeah.
And it assumes that God is within us. You know, it's a basic fundamental premise of that expression.
And Buddhism, this is what interests me about these traditions. Buddhism says the jewel is inside. Confucianism says that we know right and wrong. And if we always do what's right, then we are becoming this thing. You've mentioned this word a couple of times now, Bum Sun, which is Confucianism. And your band is called Yangban.
Yes.
Confucianism is a bit of a dirty word, though, sometimes. Like,
it is.
You speak to young women at Seoul Women's University about Confucianism, and they're just going to be like, yeah, gondedul and things like this. But
Right.
I think you generally take a positive view on Korean history. Korea is one of the most Confucian countries in the world.
It is.
If not, it is.
It is the most Confucian.
Yeah.
I would argue.
Can you just give us, I know this is a weird question, but like how you understand Confucianism? Because I think I love the first two lines of the Analects, which is it not a great pleasure to study and remember what you've learned? And it's like, this is why they all go to Hagwons and do Kumon. The first word is not God created heaven and earth or be good.
Right.
It's like study. And then the second line is it not a pleasure to greet your friends who have come from far away? Study and be nice to foreigners. Now, if you study this stuff, it doesn't make you want to oppress women and put them in tangots or something. How do you understand Confucianism?
Well, first we have to separate the Confucianism that we are familiar with the Confucianism that actually inspired the birth of the Joseon dynasty, the Neo-Confucianism, which was at the time very revolutionary. But that being said, I mean, I'm not a big fan of Confucianism, as I'm not a big fan of most isms or religions. But where I come from is from the perspective of Pungryu, and I really want to shed light on this idea of Pungryu because it is what drives everything I do right now. It is the ancient Tao of the Korean nation, and Pungryu literally means wind and flow, and it was a name of the ancient spiritual Tao, ancient spiritual tradition that existed in Korea before Korea imported Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, and later on Christianity. Obviously, this was the primordial way of life that existed before Tangun, maybe all the way back to the archaic times until the beginning of written history, when Silla and Baekje and Goguryeo imported Buddhism. And Korea did become more Buddhist than India now, and more Confucian than China is, and more fascist than Japan is, and more
Christian
than America. But that's something fascinates me about the Korean psyche. And for the longest time, it has been a reason for us to feel sort of an inferiority complex as a colonial mindset, which it is. It is basically to be more like the colonial master. But also what enabled it is this, the Pungryu
Wind and flow.
Wind and flow. And the oldest surviving record of Pungryu is by a 9th century poet named Choi Chi Won. If you go to Haeundae in Busan, have you been to Haeundae?
Yeah, of course.
It's named after him. Haeun, sea cloud, was his pen name.
Choi Chi Won is super famous though, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah.
Choi Chi Won was the genius and was the founder of the Gyeongju Che family.
Yeah.
And it was his descendant, Choe Je-u, that created the Donghak movement, which gave birth to the March 1st and the provisional government of the Republic of Korea. So it has a claim at being the spiritual founding father.
That's 1,000 years of influence.
That is 1,000 years of influence. And it's no coincidence that Choe Je-u named himself Suun, water cloud. It's a nod to his ancestor, Haeun, which is sea cloud. And Choe Je-u was a genius, but he was not a nobleman. So he traveled to China, which was at the time ruled by the Tang dynasty, which was relatively Taoist and sort of open to multiculturalism. So accepted a young kid from Silla, from Korea, and was very meritocratic too. So he entered the exam and aced it, and he became very famous in his 20s as a poet, a writer in China, in Chinese.
Is Choi Chi Won the 900 AD guy?
9th century figure from Silla. This is during the unified Silla period, right? And so, but then he came back afterwards with all the fame and glory. It's similar to like Koreans going to Ivy League or like, Oxbridge and then coming back.
Eastern Man,
Yeah,
Kim Il-sung, Ho Chi Minh.
Exactly.
They all do that, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, they all did that. They go to the West, they go to the heart of the empire and learn the ways and come back and try to make a dent. And he did try to make a dent, but it didn't work. So he went around and he spent his sort of old days just traveling and writing poems. But one of the writings he did mentions the word Pungryu. And this is the oldest surviving record of what Pungryu is. And he says, 구규 현묘지도 means this nation has a ancient and mysterious style. 현묘 means dark and mysterious. Dark as in like black, as the cosmos is. It's like deeply dark and mysterious. Not necessarily in an evil.
Not evil.
Not evil. In like in a very when they say 현묘, it's very
애매한?
mystical. Mystical or mysterious and profound. Because the universe is black and therefore profound.
Does each country and civilization have its own Tao? So Korea has a Tao.
I can't speak for all the nations, but they called it a Tao rather than a kyo. It wasn't a religion. It was just a way of life. And it says, 구교 현묘지도 왈풍류 means this nation has a deeply mysterious Tao called Pungryu, wind and flow. And what the tenets were, he said, 포함 삼교, which means it includes all three great religions. Back then it meant Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism. All three great religions. It teaches the order of Confucianism. It teaches the mercy and non-violence of Buddhism. And it teaches the naturalism of Taoism. So it includes all three of these. Nice. In a way, it's a syncretic religion. And also it teaches 접화군생, which means to co-evolve with all living things. To love and to co-evolution with all living things. That's a very shamanic perspective. And that's the oldest surviving written record of Pungryu, which was the ruling ideology, if you will, ruling Tao of the Shilla. It's what the Hwarang, you live in Hwarang there, right?
Yeah.
Hwarangs were the ruling elites of Shilla. And those were the subscribers of the Tao of Pungryu, which was also called the Tao of Hwarang. Hwarangdo and Pungryu-do are the same thing. And that was the default way of life, the native Korean way of life. It is still remaining in the native Korean words as opposed to the Chinese Korean or the English Korean words. So when I say 신나다, there's shin is an imported Chinese word.
Yeah.
But when I say 얼굴, which means spirit cave, it's not a face.
It's spirit cave.
얼 is spirit.
Yeah.
굴 is cave.
I never thought about that before.
Yeah, it's like, but it's
beautiful.
It is beautiful.
You've got a really nice spirit cave.
Yeah.
Yes.
By the way, it's the title of a song that's Yangban's new song. And
plug, baby.
But yeah, there are a lot of examples like this where ancient native Korean words, as opposed to the Chinese imported words, which came with Buddhism or Confucianism and Taoism, but the native Korean words are the Pungryu words.
Well, the Pungryu, the beliefs of the common people, because sometimes there's a class thing, and unified Shilla would have been Buddhist predominantly.
Not until the 6th century.
Okay.
So, yes, Buddhism was imported and was instated as the official state religion by the king. But before the 6th century, Pungryu was the dominant, the only, basically, way of life. And that's what Tangun was about. Tangun was a shaman. And Tangun, for more than 2,000 years, Joseon would have been ruled by Pungryu-do or Shinseon-do or Gukseon-do. There are different names for it.
Tangun was a shaman? Like, I understand it was a sanshin, like as a mountain. He went into the mountains, didn't he? I don't know. He was a shaman?
He was Tangun Wangum. Like in Korean, we use the word Tangul as a regular customer.
Yeah. Tangul Sonnim.
Tangul Sonnim. Tangul is the word for shaman in Korea. So it's like a vicar. So if you go until the 1970s, when Park Chung-hee started to destroy all the 성황당, all the shamanic shrines across the nation in the name of destroying superstitions, every village had a tangul. Every village, just like every European village had a vicar.
Yeah.
And every tangul had a sort of a social contract with the community, where the community will keep the tangul, usually a woman, keep a tangul alive and feed them.
Yeah.
And the Tangur's job was to worship for the well-being of the village, and even for the cows or the babies or anything, any sort of living being that needs to be taken care of was worshipped, and the shaman, the Tangur, would be performing the gut. So the mudang, the shamans that we know now are the ones that are like professional.
Yeah.
They get paid to do what they do. But Tangur were the community mudang, basically. It's very similar to the vicars.
Yeah.
And the word Tangur and Tangun is the same thing. It comes from the same roots. And so when we talk about Tangun, it's not a name, it's the title.
Yeah.
And Tangun's job was, like, this is the ancient tribal times where politics and religion were the same thing. And the job of Tangun was to give law, take care of the calendar, and perform ceremonies and rituals, bring people together, and through music and singing and dancing, which is common to all sort of shamanic traditions. And even in the West or in Americas, in India or in Africa, if you go back in time, all humans were shamanic.
In Korea, as I know, and you just said, they would have been women predominantly, but Tangun, when we see him, is a man. Has there been some kind of erasure or change over time, do you think, there, or how that works?
I just take that to be the time. We usually trace it back to about 4,000 years ago when Tangun was around. I think that may be the beginning of patriarchy. I think, but we would have had Tanguns or shamans long before that.
Yes.
Because we trace our ancestry from Siberia, the Baikal. I mean, of course, we all come from Africa.
Yeah.
But from our oral tradition, we usually talk about the time before Tangun, and it's depicted in a mago, this grandma figure, which we assume is the time where our ancestors, which come from the north. I mean, obviously Korea is a mix of the north and the south, but the shamanic tradition comes from the north, in what is now Siberia, and there would have been less patriarchal, more matrifocal or matri-central. But that's not written down.
Yeah.
So it's not in our sort of conscious memory. So going back to what Pungryu is for me, that Pungryu is our collective subconscious or collective unconsciousness of the Korean psyche, or maybe not just Korean, but most human collective psyche. We have a long history of us being nomadic and tribal and shamanic. And on top of that, with the invention of logos or words, with Kebyok or Genesis or whatever you call it, with the beginning of language or more importantly, the beginning of text, we start to have, conscious education. In Korean context, it happened in the form of Chinese characters, Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, and more recently, the Western characters, Christianity, liberalism, communism, all these isms and logis that came with it, all the logos that came with it. And so what we do when we perform, and what I think what Hallyu does, the Korean wave does, is it's a large-scale digital shamanic experience. It's a very peculiar. I mean, for a lot of these fans,
Can you use a tangle?
yeah. I mean, BTS and Blackpink or whatever. For the fans, it's very healing.
I wanted to ask if you were a tangle. Or if you see yourself as like the tangle of Haebangchon or something.
I do consider that. I mean, I do consider that to be my palcha. I can't claim that I'm a mudang. I mean, I'm not trained to be a mudang, but I've met a mudang as a mentor, and he basically told me, it was a he basically told me what I'm doing is a job of a tangur, especially if I do it because I care about the community. And I certainly do care about my local communities and the vegan communities and Haebangchon, Ninje, and all the rest of it. So that's how I consider consciously my role to be. But I think a lot of that happened without me thinking, because I guess it's
That's how life
blood.
works, though. You just find yourself in places doing things, perhaps.
Yeah.
And the thing that guides you through this is the idea of Pungryu. This is a collective, and you're not doing something that is perhaps new or revolutionary, but you're doing something that's steeped in the tradition of Choi Chi Won and what he was doing in the 9th century. this Korean collective. When I hear the word collective unconscious, I think of two things. I think of Ko Young, and then I think of things like Han and Tong,
Yes.
and like these things. I go Western and Eastern with this idea.
I mean, it's exactly the same. So I intentionally use that to refer to the Jungian idea, but also to basically cleanse, because that's the job of Tangur, is to heal and bring people together, and also help people connect fundamentally with nature and the planet and the universe. But before that, with each other, with other humans. And that's what music does. That's the magic of music. And so rather than, it's been several years since I've been identifying myself as not as a rock and roll musician, but as a wind and flow musician. Or not as a rhythm and blues musician, but as a wind and flow musician, because the purpose of my music is not sex and drugs. It's more about the community and sort of healing and like undoing alienation, and because that's what I find to be the most sacred power of music, and has been sort of affecting the way I craft music with young buns, and also in the work that I do in the community. But I find that to be an archetypally Pungryu thing. It's not exclusively a Korean thing. And unlike maybe Judaism or other forms of religion, Pungryu can never be a religion, or it can never be a nationalist thing, because, it is a syncretic way of life to begin with.
Yeah.
And if anything special about Korea is that we have managed to absorb all the great traditions of East and West, maybe with the exception of Islam, and Hinduism to a less degree, but Buddhism, Confucianism, and Taoism, and Christianity, liberalism and communism, capitalism and communism, all that is here because we are in that juncture, geopolitical in between, where we are both East and West. We cannot choose between China and America because we're both Chinese and American. I find myself to be, like, my subconscious is very Korean, but my consciousness is very American and also Chinese to a certain degree.
You're a walking yin-yang, basically.
Yeah, and that's the fate of the Korean people. And it's not like we can go out in the world and say, like, we're the chosen nation. If anything, we're the least chosen nation. We're the most colonial reality, and we're divided still. If China and America go to war again, it's going to be in Korea. So we have the greatest fear. But precisely because of that, we have the greatest motivation to create harmony and bridge the divided world between East and West. And I think China and the US needs to come together if humanity is to have a hope.
If Lee Jae-myung phoned you and offered you a job, would you do it?
If Lee Jae-myung,
the president, sorry, I mean the president of Korea, respectfully. If he said, like, because that seems to be where it's going. But I'm just curious about whether you would do that, whether that would be in a Tangle wind and flow thing, or it's like, no, you have to stay outside of politics.
I have no intention of becoming a sort of full-time politician. But I do consider everything I do to be political. And not in sort of the Schmittian sense of, like, dividing friends versus foe, but in the sense of, like, I want to make concrete, real world impact. And every day, having a festival is a deeply political thing on the street, like blocking the street temporarily and creating a sort of a event is, I find that to be a very political thing. And so I'm an activist, so I'm not against the idea of getting involved in politics. But I think, that being said, the politics in the current paradigm is more divisive than healing. So that's why I choose to be in the realm of arts and culture.
When I saw you last Sunday performing to hundreds and hundreds of people on a street, which is very busy, but they'd essentially kind of closed down for your performance, which was wonderful, politics didn't matter anymore. And I mean that, and I feel the same, by the way, when I play football, that class and politics and all didn't matter, and you were actually achieving and living, and it was a realization of all the things you're talking about. This is not just theoretical, abstract, let's publish a paper and be done, but you're actually living that, and it was working, because in music there is kind of no politics. You said about Choi Chi Won and this poem, and the Korean Tao is the Pungryu, and then you said the leader of the Donghak.
Yes.
Choe Je-u. Can we do something about him?
Yeah. So Choe Je-u was the founder of the Donghak movement. And Donghak was a reaction to Sohak, which literally means Western studies. So Donghak is Eastern studies. But when he says East, he doesn't refer to East Asia, he refers to Korea. Because he's still thinking the China-centric worldview. So East is Korea, Center is China. So and West is the West. And so when he said Donghak, he means the study of the Korean people. And he intentionally named it as a reaction to introduction of Catholicism in the name of Sohak. But he was not exclusive of Sohak. He studied the Bible. He wanted to incorporate the teachings of Jesus. But what he did was very peculiarly Pungryu. Unlike Jesus or Moses, who preached in words, even the Buddha, he had a mystical experience in 1860 in April. He was coming back from
That's very specific.
Yeah.
What was the weather like?
I don't know about the weather, but he was coming back from a meal from his relative's house, and he all of a sudden had a mystical experience. Very sort of a typical mystical experience, like something like William James would talk about. The very common sort of becoming one with God, having conversations with God, and which he clearly expressed as such. He says he had a conversation with Sangje, the heavenly emperor. Also he called it Chunju and Hanullim. So all these different names basically, but a heavenly God. And he started to make prophecies and teach very egalitarian ideas. And I mean, the essence of ideas are similar to Quakerism in the sense that there's God in everyone. That's why the Quakers would, they would quake whenever they had to have conversations with God. They would have those.
I didn't know that.
Quaking.
It's like a speaking in tongues thing, like a manifestation, or
so if you go to a Quaker meeting, which I have.
I'm from the south of England. Help me.
I mean, yeah, Quakerism come from England, but it also, it's one of the founding ideas of America, or at least Pennsylvania and Philadelphia. But what's unique about Quakerism is that they believe that all humans are sons of God and daughters of God. And Jesus was not different from any other human being in that sense. And that's why they call themselves friends. So like think about a 17th century English, setting where you're a peasant. You walk on the road and you meet a knight on a horse and you say, "Hey, friend." And it's not that was their teaching. That was the teaching of George Fox, the founder of Quakerism. And they denied the authority of the Pope or the priests. And they basically said everyone has the authority to directly channel God and have conversations with God. And so if you go to a Quaker meeting, you sit around in a circle. There's no cross.
Wow. There's no center either.
It's a circle. It's a very Korean sort of perspective. And you sit in a circle and everyone is meditating. And until someone have a conversation with God and starts to talk, but usually they would quake.
Okay.
I mean, which happens a lot in Korean megachurches, to be honest. But so that's why they didn't call themselves Quakers. The opponents, try to make fun of them and call them Quakers. They were called the Society of Friends. But they believed they had a very radically egalitarian democratic worldview because they're basically saying everyone is God. Everyone is equally sons and daughters of God. And that was 17th century in England. 19th century Korea, pretty much the same idea, but came from Choe Je-u. And he was very popular but what was different from George Fox, the founder of Quakerism, is that Choe Je-u started to sing and dance about it.
The Tangun is doing the shamanism.
It's a very Pungryu thing. It's a shamanism because he would do konmu, to use a wooden sword as a sort of way to symbolize that it is not a sword to kill but to save and protect. And he would dance, and he wrote songs in native Korean with Hangul. So he would write them in Hangul, and so that he can preach to women and children. And it was massively popular movement, which was crushed down by the government, and he was killed after 4 years of preaching.
The Joseon government?
Yes, Joseon government. Looking at the time, persecuted him. So he basically was Jesus. He was persecuted and killed. And his followers went underground for 30 years and created this system of underground movement called 보접제, which was like a cell underground sort of network. And they kept preaching. And the second leader of Donghak, named Haewol, which means sea moon, Choi Je-u, he basically did the job of creating the church and codifying the teachings of his teacher, his master. He published the books and turned that into a proper religious movement. But when Choe Je-u first started it, it was a spiritual and more than anything, it's like K-pop movement.
Swinging a sword.
Yeah, popular singing and reciting mantra and singing together and dancing to express his joy of enlightenment, which is very uniquely, I find to be a uniquely Korean thing. And I think that's really the archetype of the Korean wave. You know, it's because if you think about it, like, why are Koreans so obsessed with singing and dancing? You know, I mean, everyone is, but like
songs. Korean people love singing. Like, I don't say that as a disrespect, but I'm from England. We don't sing that much. Like, even we have to sing in churches and things like that. It's very people break out in song when they're happy, when they're sad,
right,
to relieve stress.
I mean, I remember the choral music at Oxford is beautiful, but it's very solemn.
Yes.
But the Korean, like, if you look at this folk traditions, it's very psychedelic. It's very, like, the point is to reach a trance state. You know?
And there's kind of, I always hear, I don't know what I love Onhae. This kind of call and response thing. And does that come from like working on fields and I don't know?
It's, I think, well, there's so many different genres and so many different local variations, but there's definitely that sort of element of working in the field and singing with it. There's also the Buddhist chants, but what I found to be the most psychedelic of Korean tradition and what sort of the main currents of the Pungryu legacy is in shamanic rituals, gun. And when mudangs and tangors, when they perform, the whole purpose is to talk with God.
Yeah,
you know, literally
to quake.
It's to quake and also to, you know, interdimensionally travel. And as a rock and roll musician, that's like amazing.
It's Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, it's like that's what Jimi Hendrix was doing. That's what the Doors were opening the doors of perception. You know, and it's so like that's when I found that interesting connection. Like it was my way through the hippies. And the New Age folks into Korean spiritual tradition of Pungryu. Because there's that connecting elements.
You know what I find fascinating about this, Bum Sun, or more about you specifically, which is that I would expect you not to like K-pop. I would expect you not to like AI. But here you are. But that's really interesting to me. But there's no cynicism in it. That, you know, you do music which is very different from K-pop, but you can see beauty or something in K-pop, and you live a lifestyle that might be very different from AI. We're sat in a wonderful bookstore drinking this tea, but you're like, no, that's all part of it as well. And I haven't found a moment where I felt you'd be like, this.
Interesting. I do. I mean, I'm very critical of the K-pop industry because it creates and manufactures products, and largely they don't consider artists to be artists. They consider to be merely a product, and that's what I fundamentally find to be the problem of the idol industry. Because idols are literally idols. They're to be worshipped, and they're not supposed to be human. You know, but I think it's just the phase in Hallyu. And when I say Hallyu is Pungryu, I do mean that Pungryu is the fountain of Hallyu. I mean, that's why Hallyu exists in the first place.
I get it.
But we're just not there yet because we have been trying to pursue or mimic, imitate the Western or the capitalist or the modern industrial modes of production. We've been producing even music, the most sacred of all things, and artists in that sort of a large-scale manufacturing way. But once Koreans realize their own sort of sovereignty, or once their collective unconsciousness is listened to, and that's when I consider Hanyang to become full-blown Pungryu. Once we have the spiritual layer of Hanyang.
Is the second character the same?
Yeah.
Pungryu and Hallyu. Sorry, that's just clicked to me right now.
Hanyang, it means flow or wave.
It
could be both. And Hanyang is the Korean wave. And Pungryu is literally the original Hanyang. And it's the same currents. It's just the flow of the collective national psyche. And Koreans have, I mean, for better or worse, we didn't have a choice in the 20th century to just work our ass off. And even now, I mean, to recover from the Civil War and the colonial wounds. And now everyone acknowledges Korea as an advanced state.
Yeah.
I mean, we're rich, democratic, and culturally powerful.
Stressed.
But we're extremely stressed and the highest suicidal rate, lowest birth rate. So it's about time we kind of heal, you know? And it's about time we kind of take a break and look back at what we've achieved and enjoy. And I think that's the realization that our generation is coming to. And of course, there are limitations to our ways of life and the ways we create and consume culture. But I do see all of that as a healing journey of the Korean people and also humanity as a whole. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I used to be a lot more angry in my 20s. And I still am very much critical of what I see, but I also see it as the universe doing its own, unfolding.
And Confucius and other leaders, they would talk about that, like stages of life and when you're meant to understand things and go through things. I like that you don't sort of discount any parts of history or Korean development. It's not like, no, he wasn't the real president, that wasn't real, or we should be here in an alternate timeline, which is, I get a lot of in academia, like these alternate histories and things.
Right.
But you're like, no, we are here.
Yes.
And this is the reality and we need to take it all in and embrace it and go somewhere else. Another like contradiction that I find lovely, and I put this in one of the questions to you, which is you have this wonderful patriotism, and Korean patriotism can sometimes go in towards gukbong, which is this kind of like overt patriotism, which is a bit cringe.
Yes.
Being from England, and like it's kind of hard to be patriotic in English these days. Or the same with the Germans, or like, you know, it feels a bit like, but I love Korean patriotism. I love seeing the Taeguk in all the shops and things like that. And you have this wonderful patriotism, and you also have this wonderful cosmopolitan, universalist, everyone is God. Do you see where I'm trying to get this?
Yeah.
These two things, how do they pull you, Bum Sun?
That's an interesting question, because I've never considered myself to be a patriot per se, but I guess you're right. And especially with what I've been talking about, Taeguk and the national flag.
I don't say negatively, by the way.
Yeah, I understand. And but I think I came to peace with my own Koreanness, which wasn't the case until recently in my life. I think through the study of the Korean history, especially the ancient history and the more modern sort of history of trauma. And Hamsa-kun put it as the history of struggle or suffering, 고난의 여왕. He compared Korean history to be a history of 고난, and which is unfortunately true. It's very, but it also is a beacon in a way that it's the only country that emerged from a colonial state to an advanced economically and politically country, and which is why it gives inspiration to so many countries in Southeast Asia and Latin America. And when you see the Korean flag, yes, this flag was waved along with the Americans in Vietnam. So it's not like Korea has never invaded another country, but it has never been a symbol of colonialism or imperialism. And flags, by definition, was created by the sort of the Western empires during the age of exploration to identify different ships across the ocean and basically tell which land is mine and which land is yours. And Korean flag was, if anything, it is the symbol of March 1st for me. The flag that they took, the Japanese flag, which was the symbol of the rising sun, basically just the sun. And the Japanese imperial flag, as you can see, is the sun beaming its light across other countries, which is very colonial or imperial. But Koreans just took that Japanese flag and built a little Taeguk around it, built a little ocean underneath.
Is that what they actually really did, though? Not just ideologically?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
logistically,
that was the easiest way to produce a Korean flag.
Yeah.
And so...
And they put the blue on the top.
And just put the blue on the top and put some bars.
Right? Yeah.
So it's, and then they waved that in a very nonviolent manner. And March 1st is a sort of pivotal moment in the history of pacifism and civil disobedience and internationalism, because it was an appeal to international law, to
Woodrow Wilson and League of Nations, wasn't it?
Exactly, to League of Nations and for Korean independence. But it was a peaceful, nonviolent appeal to international law, to the global community. And that's the beginning of the Korean Republic. Unlike, for example, the American Revolution or the French Revolution, which was a war, right? And so, but for the longest time, that was a source of shame for Koreans because we are weak. We didn't have the guts to pick up the guns. But I find that to be more courageous. And especially with the experience, because my sort of real life experience of Korean democracy was the Candlelight Revolution in 2016.
Yeah.
And the most recently, after the martial law. And I've seen how peaceful Korea is.
Peace works here, recently at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's possible, I think, because there's this tradition that goes all the way back to not just 5.18 and 4.19, but also March 1st, 3.1운동. And also 3.1운동 was organized by Donghak leader. So it goes all the way to Choe Je-u, the founder of Donghak, which goes all the way to Pungryu, to Choi Chi Won. And which goes all the way back to Tangun, which goes further back to the shamanic roots.
50,000 years ago. And
yeah. And so when I see that, it is, yes, a very Korean thing, but it's also the Korean experience is a product of the Soviet Union and America, the USSR and USA. And this was a global war, that happened here. And that's still going on now. We're literally at the forefront of the war, the rivalry between China and the US. And what I think the Korean flag or the Korean psyche or the Korean experience symbolizes is the deepest yearning to bring harmony between these two poles. And we just didn't have a choice. And what has become so shameful as a colonial sort of experience for the longest time now seems like it's the most harmless thing you can imagine. What are they doing? They just go out and put some makeups on and sing and dance, in front of the people. And that's our cultural conquest. It's the Korean invasion. But, Korean invasion is way less harmful than the British invasions. We don't have the Rolling Stones yet. No. No BTS, as I'm aware, is advocating the use of drugs. You know what I mean? It's just like
Psy or G-Dragon might do that.
But it's a very harmless thing. And of course there are danger, and the K-pop industry is very dangerous in its exploitation of the idols and so on. But at least in the surface, it's not an invasion. And
I've seen how it brings female students from Indonesia wearing hijabs and progressive people from Portland and, you know, in my Hallyu lectures, people from all over the world, and it brings them together. It really does. I'm curious how North Korea fits into all of this. When you mention, I know this is very sensitive, right? But when you mention Korea, Korean psyche, I have a friend who defected. She now lives in London. Her name is Park Ji-hyun. And I asked her one time in Korean, like, I asked her two things. One is like, do you build snowmen in winter when you were there? And the other thing I asked her is about Han. She's like, what's that? Never heard of it.
Really?
They don't, because in North Korea, like, they're the proud social. They're like, let's go. And that blew my mind to realize, and this is just one woman's experience. So there might be different things, but she told me, don't know what Han is. Didn't learn that, wasn't part of the education or the sunung or something like this. In this worldview where you talk about Korea and this bridge between the East and the West and the Pungryu to heel, how does North Korea fit into this?
One thing that, what's my buddy? One thing not many people know about the political system in North Korea is that there are actually more than one party. And one of the officially recognized political party of North Korea is the Chondogyo Cheongwudang. So, Chondogyo, which is the religion of Donghak. So Donghak officially became a religion with the third leader, Son Byung-hee, which was the main organizer of March 1st. North Korea still officially recognizes Donghak as that's the guy who made the tattoo.
Oh, very cool.
That's my friend, yeah.
Tattoo of what?
It's Pungryu.
Oh, that's a Pungryu tattoo.
Yeah. Music, pleasure, beauty. It's a Chinese character.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Anyway, so North Korea officially recognizes Donghak as a sort of a precedent to the ultimate communist revolution, because Donghak was a peasant movement, and they also recognize Chondogyo as one of the legal political parties. So if there's anything that connects the North and the South sort of Korean states and the officially recognized historical narratives is the memory of Donghak. And as I say, Donghak is the modern reincarnation of Pungryu. And so, yes, I mean, North Korea is not something we usually associate with K-pop or singing and dancing, but there are a lot of singing and dancing. They have state-sponsored, music. And if we do anything, the easiest way to reignite the inter-Korean dialogue and inter-Korean exchange is through arts and culture.
Agreed.
And so, but it's one of my dreams to perform in North Korea.
Yeah.
And when I make music, I do think about what would that mean to the North Korean average person, or even Kim Jong-un. It's like when I write something, when I listen to my new song, I try to think about how, for example, Kim Jong-un would react to this, or how a average North Korean person would react to this. Would they understand what I'm singing, and would it vibe with them? And my dream is to write something that will resonate with them and kind of unconsciously bring about their own collective unconscious.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
I get it.
Something that speaks to them directly. And I mean,
I hope that happens. I mean, Red Velvet have done it for...
Red Velvet
have done it, but other members, like YB Band or someone.
Yeah, YB has done it.
They'd be up there.
Hang San has done it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have done it. And Jo Young-pil has done it. And it's a challenge. It's the toughest market.
And it would also be interesting to hear a North Korean do it. To be on the receiving, not just to be doing it to the North Korean people, or to be performing it, but to be on the receiving end of a North Korean tangle, and to see how, or a performer, I mean, at least, and to see how they do it. Because I get annoyed when YouTube and Google take down North Korean vlogs and things, because I want to watch them. I'm not going to suddenly start walking around going Kim Jong-un or something, but I want to see the editing they do and the BGMs that they use and these kind of things, just to see how they see the world. I wonder what they're doing right now.
I mean, tell me about it.
Yeah,
I would love to jam with some North Korean musicians,
there you go,
and create something But
and maybe I really hope that does come true, and that's a thing. And it's interesting that they do have this connection. Just on the last one on this, like if you speak to a regular Korean person, if such a person exists, how does Donghak resonate today? If you say Donghak to someone, is it political or is it just like is it?
It doesn't. I mean, everyone knows about it because they learn in Korean history class, and it's just vaguely considered to be some kind of peasant rebellion that failed because the Japanese came in and killed everyone, which is what happened. But not many associated with the March 1st, and therefore the founding spirit of the provisional government of the Republic of Korea, and therefore the Republic of Korea. So it's a series of legacy that led to where we are. But if you go into the political or the spiritual circle, it is the main sort of inspiration. It's really championed and called upon whenever we need a alternative to the usual liberal or Republican Western values. And I think in the recent days, because of the sort of the political experience of the martial law and Trumpism and all the rest of it, there is a tendency to call for a sort of spiritual, because like Korean democracy movement and the pacifist movement has always been very spiritual. And that's why all these democracy fighters would risk their lives to do so, because they believed in a cause that was bigger than them. And but whenever they do, this is the main tradition that we can rely on. But when they say Donghak, it's still largely understood as an intellectual thing. They talk about the philosophy of Choe Je-u, but not his entertainment qualities, not his singing and dancing, and not the Pungryu ancient spiritual sort of inspiration that comes with it. So I try to remind people of how, right now there's this deep divide between arts and politics. And religion and politics. It's the modern condition, the separation of church and state. It's what began America and France and the modern world as we know it. And there's a big taboo against idols talking about politics. If BTS starts to dabble into politics, it's a big no.
Karina wore a red jacket in the last election, didn't she? I don't know if you know, but she got in big trouble for wearing a red jacket with the number 2 on.
That's wild. And I mean, I understand the sentiments, but like it's, that's part of the whole commercialization or commodification of idols. There's supposed to be this sterile, pasteurized, entity that's perfect, morally perfect, and have no say when it comes to our everyday reality. But that's not what Hwarangs were. Hwarangs were the sort of the priests of Pungryu in that time. These were the pretty boys. They were chosen for their looks, and they were trained to be artists, and they're very brilliant musicians, and they would have these spiritual ceremonies when they go travel into the most beautiful scenic pockets of Korea. But in wartime, they would go out and fight for the nation and risk their lives. That's why they were revered as the young leaders of the nation, and everyone wanted to be like them. They were like the influences of nowadays, but with a sort of noble community spirit. And that's I think the spirit I want to revive. That's what I believe would be the criteria when Hanyang fully becomes Pungryu again, when these pretty boys or beautiful influences or celebrities, you name it, would no longer be idols, objects, but be Hwarangs, a subject who has a say and who would be willing to even go into politics, which is what Hwarangs used to do, and also fight for the nation, and also be a musician, a sort of these artistic and creative inspiration, but also a leadership. And it comes again from the model of Tangun, where there was no separation of church and state. The charismatic and the beautiful was also the noble. And inspirational. And I think that is a condition that we cannot escape in a digital world. I mean, they already have the power. It's just that nobody reads the newspapers anymore.
Yeah.
Nobody reads books. I mean, I'm in a bookshop, but it's a matter of who says it and how they say it. But I just want the people with the great power, to be able to lead and lead people in a positive and healthy manner. And that's actually part of the reason why I'm not a Hwarang material. I'm not the usual pretty boy.
I don't know about that. I've seen the Hwarang and the latest adaptations anyway. Cool.
Yeah, but that's why I stopped writing to the newspapers and started to do podcasts. That's why I'm here with you, because I want to be able to start this dialogue about the new digital mode of being and how it can bring back our archaic sort of ways of life.
Confucius talked about the sage king, and Plato talked about the philosopher king. And listening to you, it's like we need the artist king. We need this is ridiculous, but my mind just went like, imagine Paul McCartney was president, or somebody like this, rather than a micromanager, rather than like an accountant, or rather than a financier or a politician, you put someone who is artistic or deeply spiritual. And we're kind of scared of that in the modern age. I think we don't want someone who's artistic or spiritual. We want someone that's on one side where we can label them and pigeonhole them, but it's almost impossible to imagine, which is strange because how you describe it, we always used to have this, the leaders were spiritual and the leaders were performers and singers, and we gather around them, and it's just changing it. I sometimes ask my students, like, it's kind of blasphemous, but if you could write a Bible today, what would it say? Because a lot of these books, they have good things, but how applicable are they to the modern world? And it seems to me like you've written a new Bible that uses, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but wind and flow, and this is how we do it, and this is the answer to the problems.
I mean, whether we like it or not, that's what Trump is already. He was a celebrity.
Yeah.
That's why he's the president, not because he's necessarily a businessman or a politician. It's because he has the charisma, whether we like it or not. And but that's what the digital revolution brings about. It gives power to people who can argue, or like not necessarily argue with reason, but impress. Facts don't matter anymore. I'm not happy about that, but that's the way it is.
Yeah.
And so it's a matter of how do we educate and train and raise a new generation of influences rather than intellectual. I mean, the intelligentsia used to be the leaders of the modern world. Now it's the influencers. And influencers, their currency is not words, but their charisma and their image and their dancing.
The medium is the message.
The medium is the
and
message.
We have a new medium, and it's like, what would Choi Chi Won do today? And
Exactly.
how do you communicate these ideas, not in a village setting, but in this setting with the screens, vertical format, 60 seconds or less? That's a big challenge.
That's a big challenge, but that's something we have to take seriously, and it's something the existing educational institutions or legacy media is not doing.
Yeah.
And whereas the new media environment is a complete anarchy. I compare it to the situation, the condition of the Americas before the American Revolution. So it's the Wild West.
Yeah.
So maybe the 17th century, like from Jamestown maybe until the American Revolution, there's no law.
Right.
And it's like a free for all. But what the greatness of the American Revolution is to create and give law. And that paradigm was so useful. The idea of creating a democratic republic and electing a president, having a written constitution, and having a vote every 4 or 5 years, that was beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's just so obsolete nowadays with the digital revolution. But now the material condition has shifted so radically, but the social cultural terrain has not adapted to it yet.
Yeah.
And it's a question of who, where on this globe would give this new constitution. Most likely it's going to be a code, not a written constitution. It's going to be a AI-assisted if not AI generated code that gets updated more frequently, at least than every 4 years, you know?
Yes.
And everyone would be voting digitally, and there will be new modes of reaching consensus and governance. And all these things are the tasks of the digital natives, the first digital natives. And that's what I think we are. And Korea, yes, all the technological innovations are coming from the Silicon Valley. Just like all the technological innovations of the modern world was come from England. The steam engine and the steamships. But it was not the old world. It was not England and France that gave birth to this new paradigm. It was the Americans, because there is a new possibilities in the new world. And I find that to be the similar condition now with the Pacific Revolution, because the modern world was an Atlantic Revolution. Yeah. It was with the technological innovations of Europe that the American colonies created something new socially and culturally. And I think that's what the Korean culture, Korean education, and Korean popular arts is doing with the technological innovations from the Americas. So it's like what's happening in the Pacific now is similar to what happened in the Atlantic, in the sense that the technology comes from across the pond, but the job of creating the new social innovation that adapts to these new technological realities. Like, for example, Cyworld was there before Facebook.
Yeah, you know? Doctories and those things. Yeah.
But I mean, the technological stuff was coming from the Silicon Valley, but because Korea is so small and so connected and so fast, that all the good things and the bad things about the digital world. Before Reddit, we had Tizzard inside. Before 4chan, we had Ilbe. You know, all the nasty stuff happens here first. You know,
WOMAD.
Yeah, all that stuff happened here, and very intensely.
Yeah.
But it also gives us a reason to kind of figure it out, what to do with it, and sort of give law to this anarchical situation that we find in the metaverse. So I think that's what's also happening with K-pop. We've managed to kind of mobilize the clicks in the internet world. I mean, we're using Google and YouTube and all these things from America, but the contents are Korean. And my hope is that maybe we can also come up with a new sort of paradigm of social governance, digital democracy. Maybe Singapore or Taiwan or Japan might be doing it too, but I think South Korea is a good place to expect something like that to happen.
I'm not sure if it was Yu Gil-jun, I don't think it was Shin Jae, one of the people in sort of like the late 1800s who said when Western influence was coming storming into this part of the world, they said, we need to use the tools of the barbarians to fight the barbarians. And when I hear you describe this, it's like, let's take what they've made, let's take these TikToks and Instagram. I'm not calling people barbarians, but you understand what I mean. But there was that idea at the time. Let's take Western practicality with Eastern learning and combine them. That's not new either, is it? That's always kind of been there, and that's been one of the ways that people have said we need to put them together rather than divide them.
That was the idea of Tongdo Sogi.
Okay.
It means the Tao of the East and the technology of the West.
Yeah.
And that was their slogan, but it didn't work at the time because Korea had to still absorb the technological advancements of the West, and it was busy catching up with it. But now, with those technological innovations already in place, we can talk about the Tongdo, which I think is the Tao of Pungryu, Tao of Wind and Flow.
Love it.
Yeah.
We'll leave a lot more for another time. Perhaps to close this out, unless there's anything else really on your mind. A few recommendations, like a book, a movie, a drama, a song, a band, a person, just a couple of things to throw at people.
I mean,
it doesn't have to be related to anything that we've talked about. It could be like a Screaming Trees album, or it could be a Diary of Anne Frank. It doesn't matter. It's hard, isn't it?
The book that's, that I can see right now.
Yeah.
I think there's a reason why it's there. It's called Samguk Yusa. It's something we are told to read in school, but we never do.
Yeah.
And it's the oldest sort of canonical text of history on Pungryu. Because it's the story of the three kingdoms, Shilla, Goguryeo, and Baekje. And there's a lot of episodes on Hwarang and how what their understanding of Pungryu was. And with that in mind, I've reread it recently, and it was kind of it opened a new door of imagination for me. And especially with the Gyeongju APAC coming up soon, there's a whole big fuzz about how to shed light on our history, especially the history of Shilla. And rather than looking into the material aspects of it, I mean, of course, there are the beautiful golden crowns and sakuram and all the rest of it. But what made Shilla great, if we want to make Korea great again?
Kaja?
Yeah, Kaja. Kaja. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Kaja, because like Korea was never, great per se, but my personal preference would be to make Korea unified again. And the last time Korea was unified was by Hwarang. Hwarangs were the leaders of the Korean unification.
Everything you say makes sense. It all ties into the history, though. It does, though. There's always an answer.
Yeah, they got the help of the Tang Chinese.
Yeah.
But they were the historical revolutionary subjects that led the reunification or unification at the time. Or back then, even back then, it was a reunification of a sort because Korea was not divided during the Joseon, Tangun Joseon period or Go-Joseon period. Well, there were different tribes, but anyway. So if we were to entertain a future where Korea is no longer divided, I do find it difficult to imagine North and South Korea is becoming one state in the near future. But I can't imagine a one nation, two state maybe solution, at least a sort of a peace treaty where we can have a normal diplomatic relationship, and especially if we were to expect a geopolitical sort of harmony between China and the US and Russia and Japan, we need to get our shit together as Koreans. If we're divided, we cannot expect them to be making friends. So we have the biggest incentive in the world to mediate between China and the US. More so than Taiwan, because it's, again, last time they had a war, it was here. And the Korean War, the armistice was between China and the US, not between South Korea and North Korea.
North Korea signed it as well.
North Korea signed it, but
parties.
South Korea was not part of it. And China and the US were signatories. So we have the biggest reason to bridge the two. And the only historical example that we can look into it, I think, is Samguk Yusa and the story of Hwarang and how they embodied Pungryu. And the Hwarang there, they just portray Hwarang to be military and almost fascist, Spartan soldiers, which is not the case. So I do recommend a sort of leisurely read into Samguk Yusa.
I love that. Of all the things, I was not expecting the Samguk Yusa, but it's perfectly in keeping and fitting with everything else.
It's just
I've got a copy on my shelf as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like everyone has that book.
Yeah.
But not many people just want to read it. It's like the Bible.
Bart did I Go Bart, the Dutch guy who goes around all the dongs in Seoul. I don't know if you know.
Yeah.
He did my dong.
Right.
Bart did my dong, and so I had to explain the Hwarang. And so when I had to explain the Hwarang, where did I go? I went to the Samguk Yusa and I read it for that. It's like going back to school, and I completely agree with the shamanism and the mystical nature and the way that they were changed over history as the Korean dynasties changed.
Yeah.
When you were talking about sort of North Korea and South Korea and unified, my mind immediately went, what would it be called?
The unified Korea.
Yeah, just Korea. Do you know what I mean by that? Because we've talked about logos and labels and words and all things like that. The Korea which can be Korean is not the real Korea. I don't know, but just even the name alone.
I mean, in English, it's both already Korea. It's the Democratic People's Republic of Korea and the Republic of Korea.
This is 대한민국.
Yeah, but in Korean, it's 대한민국 and Joseon. Right, 한국 and Joseon. So,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's what the Chinese call it. The Chinese call this Hanwao, and they call North Korea Joseon.
yes, and that's how the North Koreans call it too.
Blows my mind.
And I mean, I think that's perfectly fine. And I don't, and I mean, we can't go too deep into it. But I'm not an advocate of a one-state solution for the Korean condition. I'm an advocate of the two-state solution.
From the Han to the Donghak or something. We're gonna get somewhere. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I think it's beautiful to have two states for the Korean people. Why not? I mean, it's Joseon and Hanguk, and even in the ancient times there was the Samhan, and then there's the Joseon in the north, and maybe that is, but that's what makes it a Taeguk, and because the Han part.
Yeah. I agree with you.
The Hanguk, the Mahan, Jinan, Pyeongan, the Saman, the southern parts of the Korean history, is largely from the Pacific. There's a lot of folk tales about Indian princesses coming here.
Eggs and things like things being born out of eggs.
That is a proof of our sort of roots from the seafaring people.
Yeah.
Came from India and like Southeast Asia, but then the whole shamanic northern traditions come from the north, which comprises the Joseon part of the history and Goguryeo and all the rest of it, and that's continental.
Yeah.
And that's what makes Korea Pungryu. It's like it's always the mixture and the embodiment of the two poles, and that is the destiny. And that's why Koreans, I think, have had no choice but to develop this psyche.
Yeah.
And Pungryu and bibimbap, where we have to just like mix everything and just let it ferment for a long time. That's what I see of the Korean condition now. It has absorbed Buddhism, India, China, Confucianism, and Taoism, and Christianity, capitalism, communism. Basically, we put all the great powers into this particular land, a peninsula, and let it sit. And with Han, with trauma, with sort of our pressure, we absorbed it, learned it, and made it Korean. And there's nothing Korean about it, but that's what makes it Korean. If you look at Hanyang, if you look at K-pop, it's so weird.
Imitation and
black music, white music, Japanese music, Korean music, all mixed in. It's not, it's nothing. It's not black or white or yellow, but that's what makes it Korean. That's what makes it unique. It's so absurd, but it's unique, and it's something I think we can be proud of now, in the sense that, like, if you look at Korean megachurches, Korean Buddhism, Korean Confucianism is as perverted as K-pop is perverted version of the American pop music, But that's what makes it Korean. And we're one of the very few countries where we celebrate Christmas and Budamas as a national holiday. Literally, you put in the same place the Christmas tree, and then you put the pagoda. The different time of the year.
That's why we need to get more Muslims in here. Then we get another holiday. We have Christmas, we have Buddha's birthday, we have Tangun coming up, his holiday. We're getting there.
That's what I find to be I think the guiding spirit of Pungryu, because like you can't expect that in Japan, for example, or in China.
They eat KFC on Christmas in Japan. That's what I've heard.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's what I found to be the Korean condition now. And it's about time we kind of make peace with it ourselves as Koreans, and be like, you know what? Well, that's what makes us unique. And that's what makes us gives us the power to be the bridge between these polarized worlds of left and right, which really translates into China versus US and East versus West.
And people cling to one side, don't they?
Yeah, and people cling to one side. And we were divided, and we had a civil war because of that. We were like, are you communist or capitalist? Are you pro-American or pro-Russian? Pro-Chinese, pro-Japanese? We've done that. We don't want to do that again. We don't want to do that again. And so this is a message I think would resonate not just among Koreans, but also among Americans now, which I think is on the brink of a civil war. Also the Europeans and other Eurasians and Africans, obviously, for that matter too. So, but all that through our cultural Hanryu or Pungryu
Yes.
ways, and that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. That's why I get up in the morning and
Yeah.
do this with you.
Love it.
Yeah.
You sometimes say goodbye by doing this?
I do greet, and I don't know why I ended up. I mean, maybe because I was in Thailand for too long.
Yeah.
But it's a very Buddhist way,
Yeah.
and I find it to be very beautiful. Thank you.
I'll do it with you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
That was fun.
수고하셨습니다.
Yeah, 수고하셨습니다.
Man, that was fun.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. Thank you. Thank you for just going. And
I haven't talked about this in English in public. I obviously chat with Amy all the time about Pungryu and
yeah.
all the rest of it, but yeah, it's interesting to get it on camera.
Beautiful. No, I love it. You make me laugh and make me think. Spirit Cave.
Yeah,
I love Spirit Cave.
there's
얼굴.
얼굴.
Oh.
And when we die, the spirit come out of it, and then I find it to be the same thing as the Platonic cave.
Yeah.
The method of the Platonic cave, and another sort of bridge. Were you keeping Wang Sun inside there? Oh, okay. I was like, quit staring at me. Sort of.
He's 15, let him eat poop and pee. He's clean this up.